Hi there, everyone, and welcome to the Stamping with Sara webisode. Today, I'm excited to show you this beautiful bird branch stamp set from our friends at Studio Light. The stamp set has two clear stamps. You've got the branches, which measure about 3.5 inches tall and 2.5 inches wide. And then separately, you have this beautiful bird, which is 1.5 inches from the top to the bottom. I love these branches because they can be positioned in just about any direction, and the bird can be placed with or on the branches, or you can use him separately. And because these are silhouette designs, you can also do some really fun techniques using water-based markers and a spritz of water. Now, those of you with a Stamping with Sara membership have already seen this stamp set. You already know about the paper pack that I'm sharing today, which is the Orchid Melody 6x6 collection. This pack has 24 coordinating sheets. You can see the patterns here on the front of the package. It's also fun to flip through them too. Now you've got 104 cutouts in here. You've got some borders as well as some rectangular areas here. And I noticed too that our little bird just fits right in there perfectly. These are, of course, double-sided 6x6 sheets, and of course, because they're all coordinating, you've got lots of options for matting, for layering, for the inside and the outside of your card. And of course, you're getting multiples of each of these beautiful sheets. Here's another sheet with some of those cutouts. The reverse side is a beautiful all over pattern. Now also on the other side of our packaging here too, you always have a project idea. So you've got a really nice card design here as well for a little bit of inspiration. Now, if you would like to know more about our Stamping with Sara membership, please do stay tuned to the end of this webisode, and you can find out how you can get each month's stamps early and at a discount. As you can see, we have a lot of creative possibilities to explore today, and I'm so glad you're here. So won't you please come stamp with us? Let's begin with our first card project, which is featuring just the branches of our stamp set here on the card focal. So you'll remember that the two images on here are two separate stamps, so they can be used together or individually. And so in this case, I'm only using this branch design. Now, what I really like about the versatility with this branch is that you can stamp it positioned in exactly the same way it is on the packaging, and this looks really pretty. You can also turn your branches around, as I've done here on my card, so that they're angling in a different direction. And of course, you can have these going in all different kinds of directions. You can even create borders or a complete background or a wreath design with this same stamp by stamping it multiple times in different directions. So I really like the versatility of that. Now you'll also notice that I've got some different colors here on my stamped image, and that's because I'm not stamping with an ink pad the way we have in the past. Instead, I'm coloring my stamps with markers and then making my impression. This is a classic stamping technique and one that is a lot of fun and really easy to do as well. So let's take a look at some of the details here. I'm going to move aside my card and I want to show you the markers that I'm working with today. So this is a set from Paper Wishes. And these are dual-ended. You've got 36 high-quality water-based markers. Now, I'll flip this over and you can see all of the different colors included in this set, which is really nice. It gives you a nice range. These are dual-tipped, as you noticed on the front, which means that you've got one side of each marker has the fine line and the other one has a thicker tip, which is another great value. So you've got two tips in each of those markers with all of those different colors. Now the most important thing that I want to point out is that these are water-based. So the techniques that we're doing today will include some water, and this is only possible with our water-based markers. So for your alcohol-based markers, save those for another project. You'll want to have only water-based markers for this type of technique. Now, another thing that is going to come in really handy is a stamp positioner. So I've got my Misty here. You can tell how well loved it is. And I've got my stamp and my cardstock all ready to go on here. So I have my piece of white cardstock magneted in place. I don't think that's a real word, but I'm going to go with it for now. The cardstock I'm using is the Hunky Dory Lightweight Essential Card Block, and that's what I've been using throughout today's webisode. On the other side of my Misty plate, I have my branch stamp already positioned on here. So this is going to hang out over here for all of my stamping. So you can see it's going to position right in the center of my white cardstock. Then I can do my coloring. Now before I do my coloring, I want to point something out to you on the stamp set. I'll bring this back in again. And you'll notice on these branches, at the very tips of the fine branches here, you've got some little circles. Now those could be colored red, and they could be winter berries for a Christmas card, or you could color them in with floral color and think that they are floral buds or flowers blooming on this gorgeous branch. So you've, again, got a lot of flexibility with this design. I'm going to go with some fuchsia for my flowers, and I'm also using 2 colors of green for my branches. I have a Kelly green, and then I have this almost like a blue-green, little hint of blue in that green design. So I'll set aside my magenta for now, and I'm going to start with the lighter of my 2 pen colors. And I want to work with the thicker side of my dual tip, and I'm going to just color right onto my stamp. Now I'm not being terribly precise here. I'm kind of holding this pen at an angle so that I can color in pretty much all of the stamp. I'm focused more on the branches themselves rather than the ends of the branches where those little flowers or berries are going to be. I'm working onto my craft mat too, because although I'm not using a lot of water for this technique, I will use some water to clean my stamp, and it always helps to have a craft mat underneath to catch any of that excess water. Okay, so I'm just going to close this up and press this down. Now you do want to make your impression immediately after you color your stamp, so don't wait in between those steps. Here you can see I've got a really nice start to my design, and what I'll do then is come back with my second green. So I already used my Kelly green, and this is my darker green. And again, I'm going to go for that broader tip, and I'm really focused here on the main portion of the branches, and I'm highlighting on here. I was trying to think of the first time I ever saw this technique demonstrated. I mentioned it's a classic technique, and I think I was just astonished to see someone drawing on their stamp with a marker. I think that was back in the olden days when we only had wood-mounted stamps. So this is a little bit easier cleanup process, I suppose. Okay, I'm just going to stamp this down in place again. Open that up, and you can see now I've got some darker color concentrated down here, and I've got some nice lighter color up at the top. Okay, now what I can do from here is take an old rag. I'm going to give a little mist of water on here and just dab this off. I'm not really flooding the design with water. I just want to take off any excess of that green. Now I'll come in with my violet, and I'm just going to hit the tips of those branches where my imaginary flowers are going to be. And I will say this is an easier process to do if you are able to stand or sit so that you're looking directly down onto the design. I'm coming at this at a bit of an angle, so it's a little trickier to see. But I think I might have gotten many of those little flowers on there, and it looks like I did. So I've already got some really nice color on there. Now the nice thing again about a Misty is that you can do this as often as you like, with one design, which does really make it a lot easier to add in as much color as you want to. If I need to go over any of those green areas with the violet, I can definitely do that too, so that I'm getting exactly the color that I like. And I'm actually quite happy with this design now. So I'm going to scoot this out from under my magnets. And now you can see I could have this going in lots of different directions. Now to clean my stamp, what I'll do is grab that mister and just mist right onto the stamp itself and kind of mop up that design. And then I am ready to move on. So let me bring back in my original card here and we can take another look at this. Now I have die cut my white cardstock into a rectangle, and for that I'm using the 12 rectangle and scallop die set. And then I've got my nested scalloped piece here, which I've die cut from gold metallic cardstock. Now this comes in a pack of 3 sheets measuring 8.5 by 11 inches. It die cuts beautifully and it makes a really nice touch of gold on a card. It also coordinates perfectly with the metallic gold dazzles. And here I'm using the Grateful, Thankful, Blessed set. I'll show you the sheet that it comes on, but you can see I don't have very many of those left in there. It's time to get some new ones, but they come in a variety of different fonts and sizes, and you also get those little gold hearts on there. So it adds up to a nice coordinated design with that gold cardstock. And the front of my card is covered with the pattern paper, and then I did ink around the outside edges using that velvet fawn ink pad, so that's going to give me some nice shading around there as well. And I have a bow tied in some green jute twine. This is also another one of my favorites, and it just adds a nice touch of softness to a card project. Now my card base is a 5-inch square from Hunky Dory, and these are just perfect for a petite size of stamp like we've got today. So this is creating a really nice area for me to do all of my designing. Then for my card inside, I have another die cut rectangle, which shows a portion of the pattern paper. This is matted onto gold cardstock. And then I have the Sending Smiles Dazzle down below, which coordinates, of course, really nicely, not only with the gold of my matted piece here, but also with the gold on the front. And the Sending Smiles and Grateful, Thankful, Blessed sets do coordinate really nicely for the inside and the outside of your cards. The next card is using only our little bird stamp, integrating him with the pattern on our patterned paper. So this is the direction that the paper design is designed to go, with this beautiful border down here at the bottom. I really like this portion up here at the top, so I turned the paper around and I've positioned our bird so he's kind of perched on this stripe with this foliage here. Now for this image, I'm combining marker colors, but I'm also misting the stamp with a little bit of water before I make my impression. So let's have a look at this technique. I'm going to bring in once again my Misty here, and I've already got my stamp on one side. I've got a piece of this white cardstock on the other side. So for this demo, we'll just do it on our same Hunky Dory cardstock. And I'm going to be using a variety of markers. I've got 4 here for the project that I'm doing. So I'm going to start with this gray color, which, you know, the gray is always going to be a classic in your ink colors, in your marker colors. It's not as visually exciting when you're shopping for those markers as the prettier, bolder colors, but it really does work beautifully. And I find that I use a gray lots of times. So I'm going to start with the gray. I've also got a purple and a blue. I'm going to use the black for a little bit of finishing detail. So I'm going to put aside these markers here for now. I've also got my Mister bottle on hand. Now everybody's Mister bottle will produce a different amount of water, so you do want to kind of get to know your Mister bottle before you start working on a project for real. Sometimes the mister will release a very fine misting. Sometimes it's a little more directed, so do have a play with that before you start your for real stamping. Okay, I'm just coloring the entire bird here with my gray marker, and then I'm going to come in and I'm going to mist this, just one misting. So the trick here is that you don't want to flood your design. You do want to add enough color in there, or enough water in there, so that the color will be fluid. And you can see this when I'm stamping on here. When I make that impression, because the stamp is clear, you can see where that ink is connecting with the paper. I'll open this up and I've got a really pretty, soft little gray bird. Okay, I'm not going to clean this off, but I'm going to come back in with my purple marker and I'm going to color the bird in all the way. I'm not really getting his feet or his beak too much. I'm not too worried about that, but I do want to get the rest of his body in there. And then once again, a quick misting. And close this up again. Now I can tap this lightly for a little bit of color, or I can really press on it. Each way will give me a different effect. So I've got a little bit of that pretty purple on there. And now I'm going to come back in with my blue. And I'm going to concentrate the color more on his tail feathers. And kind of come up around the edges of his body there. And then once again, a quick misting. Now if I notice that that line is a little bit too stark for my taste, I can also just tap in here with my finger and blend that a little bit. And then let's close this up again, and there we've got some really nice variation on the color of his feathers. Okay, now what I want to do is use my rag to blot off not only my stamp but also the area around here on my Misty where there's some excess water. Now I'm going to add in his beak and his feet. And for this I'm using the black marker and I'm using the fine tip, and I'm not going to mist this with water at all. I'm just going to have the ink straight from the pen. Make sure I've got this all here, and then right away close this up, press that down, and you can see that I've got the detailing here on the beak and the feet. And this is really fun, especially with images like birds or florals, because you can really alter the different colors that you're working with and the intensity of the water and of course the color choice. You can really play with lots of different versions of the same stamp. So again, lots of versatility here, which I really like about this stamp set. Okay, I'm going to dab this off, and then I'll bring back in my card project because there are a couple of other things I want to show you about this design. So for the rest of the card, I'm adding rectangle shapes for the focal, again using that metallic gold cardstock as a layer. Now my card blank again is a 5-inch square. I'm using 2 sections of this patterned paper. Because you get multiple sheets, you can really do some fun layering here. So this was the other side of my focal area, and then I've got this beautiful portion down here. And then I've also got this section here, which I've used too. So lots of different ways you can use those multiple sheets of paper to create your layers. Then I've also got a scalloped edge, which I've made using the edge of a rectangle cutting die. So with those rectangle dies, you can see you've got the option to create a rectangle, but you can also do a long border here. And so what I do with this, I'll show you with a smaller one of those dies. Simply position your die along a portion of your paper or cardstock. So instead of doing the entire rectangle, you just need a little border piece that can be tucked underneath your cardstock or paper to create a really nice edge. Then I've got a dazzle here from the Grateful, Thankful, Blessed dazzle sheet, which I snipped apart. So this is normally a much longer sentiment. It goes all the way across here, but you can, of course, snip those words apart to isolate just 1 or 2 of them. And I've got a large crepe bow tied up here at the corner. Then for my card inside, I've kept it really simple with some coordinating green pattern paper. I have a strip of metallic gold and the Sending Smiles dazzle from the Script Dazzle set. The more water you use when stamping, the softer and more diffuse your image will be. And you can see here on this project that I've added quite a lot of water, especially with this branch here, and it's giving a really nice soft effect. So let's take a look at how to do this. And I'm going to bring in, once again, my Misty, and I've got my branch on here, and I've got this piece of white cardstock. So what I'll do is first color my branches. I'm going to use the brown marker here and just color the entire piece with my brown. Now you can mix and match your colors on a single stamping round if you want to. So I could, if I wanted to, with this brown, I could also add in maybe a little bit of dark green. So let's add this in here too, and we'll see what results we get. Now when you're adding a lot of water, this is where your water mister will have an effect on the different kind of look you'll get, and also the amount of water that you use. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm coming at a little bit of an angle, and I'm really misting this quite a bit. And then I'm going to close this up, press this down. I'm not squashing it too much, and lift this up, and you can see this really soft and pretty effect that I have on here. I really like this. Now if I wanted to add some more color to the tips of those branches, what I would probably do is let this dry and then come back and repeat the process with another color on these branch tips, and you could do some really pretty effects working in this case with some more green colors. Now you can let this air dry, or you could give it a quick zip zap with your heat tool if you want to. And what I would also suggest you do before you move on is make sure to dry your stamp and also dry around on the area of your Misty where there is no stamp but there is water, just to make sure that you don't get any water in an area where you don't want it to go. So I think that looks quite nice, and this would be a great focal for a card project. Alrighty, I'm going to set that aside, probably use it for another design. Let me move in my card blank and we can take another look at this here. Now I've also added the bird in here as well with some soft blues and greens. And we'll talk about how to do the bird with a bit of masking in our next project. But before adding that bird, let this background piece dry totally, and then you can position him on whichever portion of the branch you want him to go. Now with the front of my card, I've got this piece matted once again with the gold metallic die cut rectangle. My card base is 5 by 6.5 inch. It's a blank white card from hot off the press. And since the paper at 6 inches won't cover the entire card front, I've added strips of gold metallic at the top and the bottom edges, just straight edges rather than the scalloped ones, though you could do that as well. Then I have a Birthday Wishes script dazzle down at the bottom. Inside the card, I have a really simple hooray message accented with the heart dazzles and matted with the layered rectangle dies. So let's take a look now at adding not only the bird, but also a little bit of splattering to our card project. For our final card project, I'm going to build on this watercolor branch effect that we've just looked at. I'm going to add in a bird, and then I'm also going to add in some splattering here in the background like you see on this card. So I'll do the demo, and then don't worry, we'll come back to this card and talk a little bit more about the overall design. So starting with my Misty, once again, I've got my fully dried piece here ready to go. I've got my bird positioned over here on the other side. Now when you're positioning your bird, because this is clear, it may be a little easier to take the liner sheet of your stamp to kind of play with the positioning here and see where you'd like that bird to go. And don't forget, you can turn around your branches in whichever direction you want them to go. Okay, so my bird is in place, and I think I'm going to color him with this really pretty kind of teal, dark teal green and a lighter green here. And I'm going to add quite a lot of water to this as we've done before. So let me first color him with the green, and I'm going to get the whole bird, the beak, the feet, all of the feathers around along the bottom and the back. and then mist him quite a lot. Now when I do this, because I've already got something over here on my other side of my misty, I'm going to kind of clean up some of that excess water there. Sometimes when you're working with quite a lot of water, it can go in places you don't want it to go. All right, so I'll tap this gently here, and there we've got him positioned right on there, quite like that. Now coming back in with my darker color, I'm going to add in some more color here, mostly around the tail feathers and the back and the body, and misting this quite a lot again. I'm going to remove some of that excess, and then I'm going to tap this gently, and it looks like we've got a really pretty effect in here. Now again, I could keep going with this for as much or as little as I want, and I'll dab this off here, and then again with the black I'll just add some definition to the beak and his feet. All right, and then stamp this down. All right, so now I've got my bird, I've got my branches. I quite like this effect. Now what I'm going to do is remove my bird. I'm going to set him aside, and I'm also going to take out my stamped piece here. Now I am working onto my craft mat, and this is going to be really important. Not only is it protecting my work surface, it will also be my palette, because I want to add a little bit of splattering around on my image. So I'll bring back in this other card, and you can see here I've got some really fine splattering with my light purple and blue, kind of going around the outside edge here of my watercolor effect. And it's not splattering onto my bird body, and that's because I've cut a mask. So this is another classic stamping technique, is to mask off the area that you don't want to have the splattering go onto. So here I've just stamped my bird onto a piece of a sticky note. So this portion with his tail is a little bit sticky, and that means that when I place this down, hopefully he's dry enough, when I place this down here, it will cover my bird. So I'm going to position that there, and then let's see, let's come in with maybe some of this teal marker, and I'm just going to scribble a bit of this onto my craft mat, and then mist a little bit of water in here. I also have a water brush on hand. This is watery too. I've got a cup of water over to one side. I'm going to get nice and watery, this nice watery wash. Holding this perpendicular to my piece, I'm just going to tap this around here. And I can change the angle of this if I want to as well. And again, as much or as little of that ink as I want to have splattered around here. Now I'll clean this up. This is the beauty of the craft mat. And then I'll just gently lift this up. And I've got my bird protected from any of those splatters. And then I've also got this nice splattering effect around on the outside edge of my design. All right, so let's take another look at our final card project here. And you'll see that I've die cut this piece into a circle. And this is, of course, using our circle and nested dies. And I'm working with that beautiful soft blue patterned paper and the darker pattern paper from that same collection. Again, making use of that gorgeous design down here at the bottom. I've also got my Hello Dazzle from the Script Dazzle set. On the card inside, I have another portion of patterned paper, a very narrow strip of gold metallic, and then the Miss You Script Dazzle here. So this is our final card project of the day today. A big thank you to you for joining me today. I think this set has been so versatile and so much fun to work with, and I hope you've enjoyed seeing all of those creative possibilities. Now the stamps and the paper pack are available in a money saver, and you can see that special offer on the right-hand side of your screen. As I mentioned at the beginning of the webisode, you can also get the latest stamps and papers with our monthly Stamping with Sara subscription. You can see more information here. You'll be the first to receive the stamp of the month. You'll get that before the webisode airs, and you will save 10% off the retail price. You also get a free goodie each month, plus a free gift with your membership, which is this wood grain stamp, which I really love. It's a great background design. And this is also shown on the right side of your screen. Now, if you happen to be watching us on YouTube, we'd love for you to subscribe and give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. And please do join us on paperwishes.com. This is the only place you will find this fabulous membership subscription, plus a whole lot more. You'll see that we also create 6 webisodes every week to inspire your creative spirit. Thank you again for joining me today. We're really so glad you're here, and we're happy you're a part of our Paper Wishes family. Do feel free to leave a comment. We love to hear what you think. I will see you next month for another episode of Stamping with Sara.